Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.
Hello and welcome to the Expert Interview Series, and today we have with us Ms. Bhavisha, a seasoned professional with over 2 decades of experience in the field of training and development. She is currently working as Senior Director, Training Center of Excellence at Concentrix, India. From her early days as Senior Executive at GECIS to her current leadership position at Concentrix, Bhavisha has consistently demonstrated her ability to drive growth and foster talent. Her journey is not just confined to corporate corridors alone. She is also a dedicated wellness and spiritual life coach. Her passion for holistic well-being and spiritual growth shines through her work, lives of those she touches. We welcome you to the Expert Interview Series, ma'am, and hope our viewers get to learn from your experiences.
Hey Pooja, thank you. Thank you for the lovely welcome, and very happy to be here and to be able to contribute and make a difference.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and hope our viewers could relate to your journey and learn from your experiences. That is the whole motto of the interview.
I hope so too.
Right. So before we start, I would like to know, about your journey and how was it coming so far in this line of work, and what does a general day look like for you at work?
Sure. So Pooja, I think you pretty much captured in terms of my journey. I started about 23 years back from, I started as a frontline advisor in Jekis, which is GE Capital, back then is Genpact now. Started as an advisor, moved up into team leading roles, different domains. I was an operations person pretty much for the first, so my career can be put into 2 different halves as we speak, where the first half was into operations, and then the second half has been in training. And I happened to stumble upon training by chance at a time when I was given the opportunity to just move in, given that we had some instability in that function. So I was told that, why don't you go, see if it works for you. I thought that my stint would not be for more than a quarter or 6 months max, given that I have the fire in the belly and I felt that I was a hardcore ops person. So maybe training is not my thing. But as they say, destiny had different plans, and rest is history, as I felt that really my calling was in training. Because I do feel that if you were to set somebody up for success right at the beginning of somebody's career, then the rest of the journey becomes fairly simpler. So then, I've had multiple training roles from and again, from a particular domain, then going to a complete, org level training, to global roles, to strategic training now, which is what I've been doing for the past, 7 odd years. So from that perspective, if you were to really ask me on how my typical day kind of looks like, I would say, well, it really starts by when I reach my workspace. It's like I kind of, to sound very funny to you, but it's more like I pray. The first 2 to 3 minutes, I just kind of get myself grounded to say that, today is going to be a fantastic day. And there are these affirmations. Everything that I do is going to be, amazing. I'll be able to reach out to people, and any problem that comes my way, I would be able to get into the solution, part first. So I have these, 4 or 5 nice affirmations with me. So, I kind of start with just grounding myself and prepping myself up for the rest of the day. So that's the first part. The second, of course, is, organizing my day. Now, when I say organizing, when you reach, you have these hundreds of emails that are there. You have a lot of meeting invites through the day. So I kind of write down all the stuff that I'm supposed to achieve in that given day. And I also kind of bifurcate them into what's urgent, what's important, what can actually be passed. Okay. And with that, I kind of get into the drill, of my day, where I'm checking emails, clearing them, reviewing some of the important metrics that need to be looked at every single day, some key items that need to be addressed, key members that need to be met, and then go through the whole drill. And that's really the execution part, right? Where you're going through the day to do, whatever are the tasks that you have lined out for yourself. Another thing that I try and do every day, and I would say for most part, I'm able to do it, barring a few exceptions, is I try and find an opportunity to mentor one person per day. Now, this could be this could be a personal discussion, professional discussion, well-being, anything that, one of any of our staff members that may need intervention in that they choose to reach out for. So then that's the other piece that I kind of focus on each day, and then I kind of size up my day at the end. So basically assess and say kitna ho gaya, kitna reh gaya, what was I to do, what got left, what could I have done differently, and just kind of that assessment helps me figure how productive my day was and how much I managed to achieve. And then I kind of close my day, wear my home jacket on, leave my work behind at work, and move on. So I'm a big fan of acronyms. So really, this whole what I told you can be summed up as POEMS, POEMS, which is your pray, organize, execute, mentor, and then sum it up or size it up could be the S, where every day is like a different rhythm. How you build that rhythm is what I kind of focus on. Rhythm kaise jayega, that I don't know, but at least have a structure around it to go through my day. So that's pretty much how my day goes, or how I structure it.
Now, after I hear this, it looks like a poem to me as well. So it's like you are reciting the whole day as a poem, and very beautifully synchronized. But what the best part was that you started with praying and giving affirmations that yes, everything will go well. So that's, I think I've heard it for the first time, and it looks quite positive on a starting on a positive note.
Yeah, Pooja, I think the kind of work that we do today, the way our lifestyles are, there is indeed a lot of stress. And when you're at work, there are timelines to be met, there are projects to be completed, a lot of submissions to be done. So we've got to realize that, how do we bring forth the best that we can possibly do, given the construct of time and the task and everything else. So I think like I said, it's very important to ground yourself right up front. And this is something that helps me. So I thought I'd share.
Right. Next thing that I would like to ask, since you said that, you transitioned from operations to, HR, training and development. How was the transition? Was it difficult? What kind of challenges did you face?
Was it difficult? I would say no. Was it new? Definitely. I think it's like, sitting and being on the other side of the table, where when you are in operations, you are getting, a set of resources who've been trained a certain way. And then it's very easy to figure that, what's wrong, what could they have been done or could be doing differently for they to have performed more efficiently while, they are in production. However, on the other side, I think I got like a green field to now figure how to put those very checks in place. How do we train differently? How do we engage differently? How do we retain information? How do we build our content that helps retention to happen faster? Right. Now, those things were very exciting and something different that I got the opportunity to do. And which is why I don't think it was a challenge in terms of, oh, how am I going to do this? It was more in terms of, oh my God, there is so much to be done. How do I now start to put all of this in place? So there I felt that, and again, usually in any organization, after you've hired or onboarded a person, training is the next journey that an individual embarks before they start to do their actual role. So if we get that piece right, and if we have to get that piece right, then I feel that the role of the training department is just so much more important, because you have different types of learners, they all have different styles. You also are catering to different generations, and how learning has changed over the last 20. It's amazing to see how from, hard book driven trainings, I remember I would have like a 5.5 kg, book that I would carry, or this was like a module when I started off in Jekis. To now we are trying to create content which is bite-sized, not more than 3 to 5 minutes, ready to be viewed on a mobile phone, ready to be viewed on the system. That's how much it has transformed. So being a part of that evolution of training, evolution of learning, I think has been the most exciting part. And that's what has, kept me in good stead for so long, and something that I enjoy doing.
Right. What's your go-to strategy to foster a culture of continuous learning and development within your teams?
Sure. There are a lot of strategies. I'll start with how I think I kind of lead it, or how I think about it. I think the first and foremost is leading by example. I believe in adding one new skill for myself every single year. Now, whether it is, so you did mention at the time of my introduction, right, that I'm a wellness and spiritual life coach. Over the years, whether it was coaching as a skill, whether it was NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, whether it is, how leadership skills, right? We're not born leaders. We would like to think that we are, but these are skills that need to be acquired. People management. And even as we speak, for example, I've enrolled myself in an MA psychology course. Very important to walk the talk. And that's where I think that when I go talk to larger teams, it's not just telling them to do, it's about telling them that, hey, here is what I'm doing, here is how it has helped constantly sharpen my saw. If I can do it, so can you, and why don't you move forward? Now, when you look at it from a broader organization perspective, because there are far more people than the ones that I can kind of influence and meet and kind of talk about this, we try and, there is learning content that gets created every year. There is a training need analysis that gets done. And we also have learning added as a part of the KRA. So that people start to realize that if it's a part of something that you are supposed to achieve by the end of the year, it is your responsibility to do it. And when you do it, you're actually benefiting your own self versus somebody else. And that's how I think the push and the pull both kind of happens to make sure that there is a constant culture of learning within the organization.
Right. How hard is it for the teams to really get on board and do the training? I mean, we try our best to get the best of the strategies, give examples, but it would be difficult to have everybody on board with the same enthusiasm to participate.
So Pooja, I'll say 80-20. I would say, when you have the right kind of, training path or learning paths designed, when there is a platter of learning paths that are available for an individual. You may be interested in training, I may be interested in hiring, somebody else may be interested in automation. Today there is a lot of technology that's on. As an organization, there are learning paths that we create for all of these to cater to the variety and the myriad of, aspirations that people have. And thus, when you put it out to say that, hey, go out and spend at least a day in your life or an hour per week into learning, then it becomes slightly easier for them to also skim through to see where is it that my area of interest lies. And that's also something that we, for all of our people leaders, and again, it's learning at every level. It is not just for the frontline staff or for leadership or for mid-management, it's for everybody. So very important that, there is also that ecosystem that's available where whoever wants to learn in their field of choice or in terms of something that they are passionate about, which may not directly contribute, but would eventually lead them. For example, I practice wellness. Well-being is, personally for me, it's in my DNA, but that's not my day job. While I'm a wellness practice leader, for my current organization and I do it, that's really not where my KRAs are based. But I keep learning, I keep reading, I keep picking up newer skills. I keep trying to figure out what's new that's there in the industry. And that helps me grow. So I learn from sharpening my saw in my current role. I also learn in terms of what else interests me and then try and blend and put the two together.
So how do you go about identifying the training needs for different teams and departments at work?
Pooja, see, there are two types of needs. Okay, one is aligned to the role that the person is doing. So these are more aligned to the organizational goals. There are client goals for the role that the person is in, right? And then the other are based on the individual development areas. Okay, what do I need to be able to do my role right? So I think we divide it into saying that what are some of the functional needs and kind of curated. We do like a training need analysis. They happen at a function level. They happen at a the project level. They happen at an org level, and we try and again curate training content and learning paths around it. And there are also developmental goals. Again, like I said, there are people who are in front line wanting to move, let's say, to a different domain. Do we have domain level trainings? Do we identify and do skill based trainings? Now this could be somebody moving from collections to sales. And there are to different domains like healthcare, for example, could be travel. So do you need knowledge for that particular domain? Do you need a certain skill to be able to do that right? At an organization level, maybe we need people to be more solution oriented, maybe more problem solving oriented. Some of those is what kind of get us as we do at TNA at the beginning of every year, we look at what is it that we as an organization want to focus on from an overall functional standpoint, and then from an individual standpoint, again, people management, time management, proficiency at certain, Excel, PowerPoint, technology for that matter, again. Basics of where we are. For example, basics of AI, artificial intelligence is huge right now. Generative AI is huge right now. So then we drive these as campaigns and get our teams to, then kind of appear through it. But like I said, TNA is kind of divided into those, two broad spectrums or umbrellas, if you will, to then find the learning paths that make sense to create very customized content and then, drive for execution.
Makes sense. So when you're rolling out training initiatives across diverse teams and locations, what are some of the common challenges and how do you address them?
I think the biggest challenge that I see is creating a shared need. That So that is a training program that you've created, fair enough. But how do you create a shared need for everybody to align themselves to it and to understand that that need is just theirs as much as it is ours? How do you make them see that there is significant value in undergoing this training? And then the other challenge that comes is that when you are doing training at a mass scale, how do you identify the return on investment for having put so many hours of training or having put so many people through training? So in terms of shared need, for example, today, again, I keep going back, technology is changing at the speed of light. Yeah. We've got generative AI that's taken the world by storm, and, what do you mean? How would it translate in your business? What are some of the things that you need to learn? How do you stay relevant? How do you now understand that concept to be able to deploy it in your respective programs? So that education is very important. We can't just, when there are these needs created, they can't just be percolated and say, go do the training. But the why, I think, is very important to address right up front and continue to advertise or, talk about it, because the why is what will then help create that or understand that shared need of, what's in it for me? Why should I do it? And what's in it for you? Why are you doing it? And as an organization, sure, we need to focus on a certain technology, but as an individual, I also need to know and upskill myself. And then from there on, like I said, the other, piece that becomes is, how do you quantify? How do you, for every training that you do, for every, hour of investment, how do you gauge, the efficacy or the effectiveness of that particular training? So identifying very crisp, but quantifiable output metrics, putting them together, and then measuring them over a period of time to see. I think that's then the other challenge that often comes along with, some of these large-scale training programs or TNA that we kind of deploy.
Right, makes sense, because there are, of course, it's good to have learnings on your resume or on your LinkedIn, but it should make sense to them that finally how is it going to help them at the end of the day.
I quite like how LinkedIn's also promoted people putting up, because it started to now when people put it up, it's like an achievement. Hey, I learned something new. Hey, I got to get this newer. And in fact, we also have these badges, for people who undergo training. So there are badges that are available for, a peer to appreciate a peer, for a team manager to appreciate a peer on some new learning or training that somebody's taken, or something new that they bring onto the board. So yeah, I think I'm a very big fan of the way LinkedIn promotes it. And I think that's how we need to continue to, and this goes back to your previous question in terms of the culture of learning. But I think it's a very good way of motivating people, not reward through money, but reward through, I want that recognition for having done something. And in the process, I end up learning.
And at the end of the day, we have a child inside us, and that appreciation, that badge really, makes our day. So as we see that you, of course, are into, you're a wellness coach. So wellness and productivity are very closely linked to you. How do you translate this approach into helping employees achieve professional development goals and in terms of their own personal development?
Healthy employees are happy employees. And then those happy employees are your most productive employees. Okay. I think the last 5 years, even well-being has really come into the fore. And today people realize that it's a far bigger need to focus on our well-being than it has ever been, over the last 100 years. What really heartens me is that the journey that my organization took in well-being was way before, kind of COVID took off, because our company founders was very clear that, if WHO says that 1 in every 4 people, have a mental health issue, 1 in every 5 have a mental health issue, which means every family has it. And thus it's very important that you may not necessarily be somebody who has a mental health issue, but even if somebody in your family does, there is an impact on your own well-being as well. Now, coming back to work, there are targets, there are deadlines, there are long hours, there are submissions, there are times when you're meeting your metrics and doing well, there are times when you're not doing well, there are times when you failed. Multiple scenarios that happen. And at that point in time, how do you keep yourself, again I use the word grounded, how do you build resilience? How are you making sure that no matter what comes your way, you are able to take it in your stride and say, okay, this too shall pass, let's move to the next one. Whether something good happens or whether something bad happens, right? So it's so as a, wellness champion in my organization, there are, again, I think wellness and well-being starts with awareness. Very important to first let people know it is important for you. It's not just a training that we've created, or it's not a roadshow that we are trying to do, but it's very important for you to be able to be in control of your health. Because if your mental health is not okay, then it has a direct impact on your performance. And in fact, we've run multiple surveys in some of our high stress accounts. We've realized that there are people who are, extremely vulnerable. There is interventions that have been planned, that were planned specifically for them. Now, these were psychologist driven, there were workshops that were done. There is access to a lot of healthcare well-being resources that has been provided to them. And we saw that over a period of 6 months, how the overall performance of that program increased. From unplanned absenteeism to people attriting. And again, like I said, right, every initiative that you do has to have some tangible impact that comes out of it. Now, really, when you look at well-being, the thing is that if my people are happy, I think that's great, right? People are able to maintain their health, that's great. But again, when you try and quantify, so then you look at these elements of, unplanned shrinkages, you look at, how many people are leaving that particular process where there is high stress. And then you also then sum it up at the end of 6 months. So, okay, I'm running a survey again. Now tell me how you feel, having gone through multiple training and well-being interventions. And, there is, and we do like 2-minute mindfulness activities. Pooja. Well-being is not just closing your eyes, and meditating for an hour, because time is a luxury right now. But even if we were to take out 2-minute breaks in our given schedule, it really helps improve and enhance the overall productivity. And like I said, case in point, we've run this and we continue to do this across most of our high stress accounts, put the right intervention at the right time, make sure that there is access to resources. And that's helped us also ensure that our productivity not only stays intact at a program level, but it also improves, through some of these interventions.
Right.
So, yeah.
So as we speak of wellness and well-being of individual, of course, the technology is also evolving at light speed. How do you stay ahead of the curve? And when it comes to incorporating those innovative training methods, what's your style of incorporating those technologies and programs?
So I think a couple of things again, Pooja. First of all, I think educating yourself. When you talk about newer technologies, there are too many. And every time a new technology comes our way, it's like jobs are going to go, everything's going to be taken over by, the bots or the AI and nothing. The first piece is please go and educate yourself. There are so many courses online. There are courses within your organization. There is a lot of, today you have, the internet has a lot of information. Read through it, skim through the facts where you realize that some is frill, some is the reality, but evaluate. At an organization level, I think it's also, when you look at newer technologies, one is the both looking at the outside in perspective, because then you have to keep evaluating, keep learning the newer tools and technologies and the best practices that are going on. And the outside in here doesn't necessarily mean that you only look at what's going on in the industry that you operate out of. I'm telling you, there are so many. So when you talk about training and when you talk about corporate trainings, there are a lot of experiments that we are trying to do, basis concepts that are there in the education industry. Because today, just because I am training adults, there may be a lot of progress or new technology that may have gone in the education space that could be picked up as a best practice and kind of deployed. So again, first and foremost is learning, understanding and getting the outside in perspective of what are the various tools, technologies, new methods, what can you do. The other then is the inside out perspective, is to now keep going back to what is the need of our clients, what is the need of the organization, what is the need of the learners that we have. And then kind of skim through and say that if this is the technology that's available, which one do I go and experiment with? Again, there are dime a dozen technologies. There is a lot that's outside. There is, for everything, there is a name and a word and a platform and a technology that's there. Understanding that where will it fit best? Because not everything is applicable everywhere. And then accordingly, run small scale, proof of concepts, experiment. And then if it comes through, then scale it up to whatever level that you may want to. So again, it keeps going back to, because I'm in training, I always say ki for doing anything new, you've got to first learn, first got to educate yourself, and then check for relevance.
Nice piece of advice, ma'am. Moving on to our last question. What advice would you give to aspiring leaders who wish to join into training and development, and particularly aiming for global roles?
Okay. So let me start with training and development. Again, as I say, like when in Rome, do as the Romans do. If you're wanting to train, if you're wanting to develop, very important for you to know that your entire journey is going to be filled with learning, where you would have to do a lot more learning versus somebody asking you to. So it's a journey where you have to constantly, it's a continuous learning process. Because the world is changing, the dynamics of how we operate is changing, technology is changing, the generation we are training is changing. So there is no constant here. So the only constant in your life has to become your own learning, the continuous learning. Now, with that learning, of course, you've got to constantly upskill yourself as well. Now, again, going back to the last question, if there are newer technologies and if I'm in training and development, I've got to figure out what is it, where does it fit in my scheme of things, and how can I make a learner journey simpler? When you are in training and development, you've got to understand how do you make smaller chunks easy to understand content or a concept, so that there isn't a lot of repeat of information and the people end up getting it, or the staff ends up getting it in the first attempt itself. So simplify. That's the second. Also, when we talk about learning and development and global roles, and when you talk about leadership, moving into roles where you are managing, I think first and foremost, I think as a leader, it's very important to first lead your own self. Leading others it's secondary. How do you, how confident are you? And this leadership starts as early as when you start managing even a team of 2 people, because then you're leading. In any role where you have somebody who's looking up to you for guidance and where you have to drive them for performance, that's a leadership role. So very important to look at where you stand, doing a very honest analysis of what your strengths are, what your areas of opportunities are, what are things that you need to start learning and doing differently. When you have sight of your own SWOT, it's easy to then constantly keep working on, again, becoming a bigger, better, brighter person, which will automatically relate to you becoming a bigger, better, brighter leader. But again, I would say that lead yourself first before you get into a leading journey. So there is a lot of self-talk that we do, right? How do you make that self-talk constructive to be able to overcome all of your negative self-talk, process it, make it and convert it into positive, because there are challenges that will come your way. So extremely important as a person in any field or in any domain to also understand that lead who? Lead you. I think a very important aspect. And again, see, for training, you've got to understand that there is facilitation skills. There is content development skills. You've also got to see which part of training would you want to be a part of. Is it on the delivery side? If it's on the delivery side of training, then how do you upskill yourself on standing in front of an audience? How do you do that differently? How do you do manage classes, as your person? How do you engage them? How do you make it interesting for them? How do you check for knowledge retention? So that's one part. And again, today, the delivery comes in two parts. One could be when you're in a classroom, in-person setup. The other could be a virtual training. Now, again, in virtual training, the challenges are many. So how do you learn to navigate through those, yet deliver an effective training? So training delivery is one part of it. Then the other is on the whole content development piece. And again, on content development, understanding the various content authoring tools, understanding how instructional designing is really done, storyboarding, understanding the learner needs, the products that you have, how do you build it all together? Again, the multi-modalities that you have. Now, these may sound like jargons, but really for somebody who's interested in developing content or in the content in the content creation space, then that's the other piece that you would not, again, you need to learn, upskill. There are courses available on becoming an instructional designer, on becoming a content developer. There are also so many platforms available today that you could just take licenses for, and then practice and learn. There is training AI that's very huge, which again is how do you give the right prompts, commands to an AI to create your training content. That's also very big, something that we're exploring. And again, it goes back to keep learning. There are newer things. So whether you want to do training delivery, whether you want to do content development, and then eventually over the years, whether you want to become a people manager, very important to constantly learn and pick up skills where you definitely lack. So for that, your own SWOT is very important. Beyond that, I think whether you take up a global role, local role, I think what's very important is about how you, one, accept people for who they are and then drive them basis their strengths to get the desired performance. But that's a very important people management skill, to be able to identify and then to be able to drive. But yeah, that's my 2 cents that any kind of leadership role and see, global comes with its own nuances. Different geographies, cultures work very differently. So should you want to take up some roles, and how are and maybe what are the geographies that you're looking at? How are we culturally different? Some geographies are very cut and dry, very calling a spade, wanting to be very direct in their conversation. And then there are some geographies that are extremely high on customer service, and they're very flowery. They're always wanting to go the extra mile. They both exist, they coexist, and they coexist beautifully. But very important for us, as leaders, to understand how do you deal differently when it comes to leading people from such geographies. And that's pretty much my 2 cents on how they could lead. But yeah, I think get your domain understanding first and keep learning. I think I can't emphasize on it more. Keep learning, keep learning, keep learning.
Before I conclude, just a small question that I think everybody who's aspiring to get into this field would like to know, that when you're hiring somebody as a fresher or even as a working professional, what are things that you primarily look at?
Okay, I'll say usually when we hire, the first thing that we look at is hire for the right attitude and we train for the skill. Okay. Again, if you have the attitude to want to learn, to want to absorb, to want to constantly sharpen your saw every single day, and if you're able to gauge that, through your interaction, rest we will train. But should you want to get into a role, again, there are a lot of courses that are available on Udemy and all on, facilitation, on training, what are, again, content development. Depending on the role that you apply for, come prepared, do research, make sure that you understand the role and the ask, and you have studied on it, so that when you come into an interview, you may not know that concept end to end. However, you at least have an understanding of what that means. Yeah. And from a training standpoint, of course, language, how you communicate is very important. If somebody speaks really fast or somebody speaks really slow, so how do you intonate? And again, there is a lot of material available today. So communication, how you're able to, speak seamlessly. Again, We are not looking for perfect products, because if we had that, perfect hires, there is nothing known as perfect hires. You just need groomable people. But for those groomable resources, the attitude has to be right in terms of I'm willing to learn what it takes for me to take that role. And for that, I've done my homework of the A, B, C of what I think this role needs. If I see these two things, we happily take.
So much for coming on our platform and sharing your wise piece of advice, your learning experiences, and hope people who listen to this absorb as much as they can. And it has been a great takeaway for me personally.
No, thank you, Pooja. Heartfelt gratitude for giving me this opportunity. I really hope they're able to take away, some pointers, and it helps them, in this journey of life and in taking their professional careers further. But once again, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to never miss a video from us.